Welcome back to Sailing Trilleen in 2025, in which disabled me and my frequently disabled bait Trilleen once again attack the rounding of the United Kingdom and Ireland. This time, will we make it? Welcome back to Sailing Trilleen. You join me slap bang in the middle of the Minch, which is the sea that runs between the Outer Hebrides and the mainland of Scotland. Trilleen is finally moving again, having had a long and fairly disastrous engine upgrade process. I didn't film very much over the winter, in part because I'm a bit unsure about how I feel about socials at the moment and the direction all that's going, and also because I was doing a lot of extremely messy work. One of the things I was doing was insulating for the first time the forepeak and replacing the staysail support beam because it was turned out to be rotten, which is not ideal. And that sort of work is just insanely messy, and I can't really afford to get GRP all over cameras. And also I was in a bit of a rush in most of the work. We've been trying to do it as fast as possible, and one of the things I found is that if I'm trying to film stuff as well, it all gets a bit chaotic, and I don't have the... Oh look, things are falling apart. Excellent. We've just got a bit of a roll on, which is nice. If I'm filming things at the same time as I'm trying to do them, I tend not to make a great job of it, basically. So, especially since this was quite structural, I wanted to make sure that I did it properly. So Trilleen and I are heading across the Minch. We are, I don't know, somewhere in the middle, would be a fair way of putting it. Minch is about 40 miles wide, and we are going to Loch Inchard, which is the first loch as you come south from Cape Wrath, and that's where there's a town called Kinlochbervie, which is the furthest north town on the west coast of Scotland. I was going to go a bit further today, but I have to say I sort of thought the better of it. I thought it would be better to carry out a short hop to sort of debug the boat, because inevitably, having not been sailing for some months, there are bugs. No major bugs yet, but there are bugs. It's just lines that haven't been rerun in quite the right place and all that sort of jazz. Anyway, wind's getting up a bit more, so I think I probably need to, either that or it's turned again, so I probably need to go and pull a reef in to get a bit more control. So, I will see you when I'm done. I did not, in fact, come back to you, nor, I think, from memory, did I have to pull in a reef, but rather got Trilleen running properly for the first time with the help of a reconditioned system to pole out the pitifully small Yankee jib. For downwind work in light weather, Trilleen really needs a big asymmetric sail, but for the meantime we make do. The rest of the passage into Kinlochbervie was unremarkable, save for the wind dying away as I came up towards the mouth of Loch Inchard. There are some delightful anchorages further up the loch, but on this occasion I laid alongside the yacht pontoon in the harbour there, which is essentially first on the left as you enter from the sea. It was in Kinlochbervie that I also got reunited with some new versions of the splints which make it possible for me to get round on land. They've been made by the orthotics team at the Duke of Cornwall Spinal Injuries Unit in Salisbury, who've been a silent but critical part of my journey back to the water and have patiently and repeatedly fixed orthotics that have broken under the stress of the marine environment. The harbour at Kinlochbervie was developed as a major fish landing port. Now, much denuded of traffic, in 3 days alongside I only saw 2 smaller trawlers landing. The port is surrounded by the relics of industrial fisheries, some clearly ready for use, others mouldering into decay. Otherwise, this scattered township on the edge of the world has everything you could need, most critically a helipad and a fuel dump. Good morning from Trilleen and Kinlochbervie. Last night was pretty cold, which is to be expected at this latitude and this time of year. The morning has dawned much clearer than it was for the last couple of days, and I'm hoping that this is indeed the tail end of the wee front that's been sitting over the top of us. The plan this morning is to get the boat underway and see if we can tack clear of the shoal and lay a course for Orkney. It may or may not happen, because when I put the nose outside, it's possible the sea state will still be extremely ugly, in which case we might need to wait another 12 hours. This is us just leaving Kinlochbervie, heading out into the sea proper now, almost just clear of the point, starting to feel the wind coming onto the boat. And this will be really the point where we decide whether we're going to do this or not. Equinox, who's, I don't know, at least 15 foot big enough, left a bit earlier, and they're way down below us now for reasons which I can't really work out. I'm running with 2 reefs in the main and with the jib part set and the staysail set, and she's reasonably balanced actually, so yeah, we're definitely seeing seas now coming up to the 2 metre mark, which is what we expect. We expect it to drop away as the day goes on. We're making about 4.5 to 5 through the water, which is actually very good in these conditions for this boat. And so we're at about 25 degrees. We're at about 525 west, and I think we're going to go all the way out to 521, and then we will tack and see what that fetches us. So the wind has departed a bit earlier than expected, so we're making a diversion into a loch called Loch Ereball, known notoriously as Loch Horrible. It's right on the top edge of Scotland, about, I don't know, 12 miles from Cape Wrath maybe, and we're currently about 2.5 miles from the entrance to said loch, and I am using the engine already, not because we're not still somewhat sailing, but because we're approaching one of the most fearsome lee shores in the world, and I have absolutely no desire to have trouble starting an engine coming in here. So I will speak to you, I think, probably when we're at anchor. I've spent the day anchored in the isolated splendour of Loch Ereball, a deep loch penetrating far into the north coast of Scotland, about 13 miles from Cape Wrath. I had no plan to come here, but having smashed my way round Cape Wrath, I was not feeling like the ongoing next 50 miles to Hoy, which was my planned diversion port. I wasn't feeling it in particular because the wind was falling away much faster than had been forecast, and it was persistently heading me. And especially when I'm solo, this boat is slow to tack, and so the sort of tacking on the shifts theory, much beloved of silent racers and racers all over the place, is not that practical when the shifts are coming every 10 minutes, because tacking takes a minute. So I in the end decided to motor in here and drop the hook for the night. I was also not feeling my best, I have to say. Not seasick actually, I was fine in that respect, despite the fact that there was a 2.5 to 3 metre sea running. It was more that my guts were playing up, and that's a difficult problem to manage when the boat has significant amounts of acceleration on, as I'm sure you will understand. Continence is one of those big problems that I live with after a spinal cord injury, and it affects all of us with those sort of injuries actually. It's just not talked about very much, and most of the time I manage pretty well at sea, but for some reason my guts are just a bit upset at the moment, and so I was in urgent need of a bit of an anchorage and some time to recover. Loch Erebor was also the point at which I began to become super concerned about the amount of oil which my newly rebuilt engine was using. It's really difficult to work out where the oil is going because although there are some classic thermal expansion contraction leaks in the case, we're chasing those down and they're diminishing by the day. So there's been lots of anxious camera under engine moments like these searching for leaks. Fortunately we aren't seeing major problems, but then there's the ongoing question of where the heck the oil's going. It doesn't look like the engine is burning the oil, nor should it be with new rings and newly honed cylinders, but something's going on. He joined me on passage from Loch Erebor to Stromness on Orkney. So Loch Erebor's on the north coast of Scotland and Stromness is in Orkney. And we are getting to Stromness via a tidal gate called Hoy Mouth, which is somewhat fearsome, and I'm very much hoping I've done the maths right. We left Loch Erebor at about 03:45, and we have been motor sailing, motoring, sailing, nasty combination thereof for most of the day. Currently we're sailing and we're about 9 miles from the mouth of the tidal gate, which then runs for a couple of miles into the harbour. It's really nice to have the motor off for a bit. One thing about this boat is that the engine compartment, despite my best efforts, is not very well acoustically insulated, so yeah, definitely require noise cancelling headphones, I think, on the list of things I need for this boat, but there we go. I've noticed that good YouTubers pick up the camera when their boat starts flooding or they're thrusting through a terrible tide race. Me, I put the camera down in general and concentrate on the essentials of sailing, navigation, not falling in, and boat handling. So there are only fragments of film of the passage through the Narrows into Stromness. At most, the tide was running at 4.5 knots under the boat, doubling our speed to 9 knots, or 10.3 miles an hour. And here in this slightly speeded up footage, you can see Trilleen just drifting round into her berth at the delightful Stromness marina. I handle Trilleen much like she's a ship, slowly and carefully. And here we're letting the wind do most of the work, just bringing her down onto the berth very gently as we drift in with a tiny amount of head propulsion just to bring her alongside, and then stopping her with a warp from the stern. That's all from Sailing Trilleen this week. In the next video, will we escape the tidal trap of Scapa Flow? And where will we get to? Well, you'll have to watch in order to find out.